There was never a warning, no countdown, no signal, nothing to prepare you, just a single moment, quiet, ordinary, and then everything was gone. Men walked into work like they always did, talking, laughing, thinking about the day ahead. None of them knew. They were stepping into their final shift. Because in the age of steam, danger didn't look like danger. It didn't scream. It didn't growl. It waited quietly. Right beside them stood machines made of iron. Massive, heavy, unmoving. They looked strong enough to last forever. At first glance, they were simple. Just a tank filled with water, and a fire burning underneath. To the men working there, these machines felt safe, solid, predictable, under control. But what they couldn't see was what made these machines that way. Inside the boiler, pressure was rising every second, slowly at first, then faster and faster. And unlike heat, pressure doesn't always rise gradually. Sometimes it jumps. One small mistake, a valve that didn't open, a fire burning just a little too hot. That was all it took. Because the moment pressure crossed the limit, there was no stopping it. Boilers didn't fail slowly. They didn't crack or leak in time to save anyone. They exploded, violently, instantly, without mercy. The blast hit faster than anyone could react, faster than a thought, faster than fear. Walls lifted from their foundations. Floors trembled beneath their feet. And in a single second, an entire room could be erased. Survivors later said, it felt like standing next to a cannon. Except this wasn't a weapon from a battlefield. It was a machine, built to power the world. Steam power changed the world faster than anyone expected. Small workshops turned into factories, and quiet rivers filled with powerful machines. It felt like progress, like control over nature itself. But behind that progress, there was something no one fully understood. The boiler, a machine so simple that people trusted it without question. Water inside, fire below, pressure building in between. In theory, it was easy to control. There were gauges to measure pressure, valves to release it. Everything looked safe, as long as the numbers stayed where they should. But reality was different, because those early machines were still part of an experiment. No one truly knew how strong the boiler remained after years of use. Factories pushed them harder every day. More heat, more pressure, more demand. And the more power they needed, the more dangerous the system became. Because pressure doesn't rise like temperature. It doesn't give you time. It can change in seconds, from stable to unstoppable. One stuck valve could trap all the energy inside. One mistake with the fire could push the system beyond its limits. And sometimes, it wasn't even a mistake. The metal itself could be the problem. In the 1800s, iron wasn't always perfect. Some parts were weaker than others, flawed, uneven, unpredictable. And every time the boiler heated up, the metal expanded. When it cooled, it contracted again, over and over, day after day, until the metal slowly began to weaken. Cracks too small to see, damage no one could detect. From the outside, everything still looked perfectly fine. But inside, the structure was already failing. And that's what made these machines so deadly. Not just the pressure, but the fact that no one could truly see the danger coming. By the time something felt wrong, it was already too late. Because inside every boiler, there was a limit. And once that limit was crossed, nothing could stop what came next. The moment a boiler fails, it doesn't happen slowly. There's no visible warning, no time to react, no chance to understand what's going on. Inside the metal shell, pressure has already been building for hours, sometimes days. Every second, it pushes against the walls, against the seams, against every tiny imperfection hidden inside the iron. Most of the time, the boiler holds. It survives. It continues working like nothing is wrong. But all it takes is one weak point, one tiny flaw, too small to see, a crack no bigger than a coin, and suddenly, everything changes. The first sign isn't what people expect. It's not a slow build-up, not a warning sound. It's a sharp door. like a cannon firing in a closed room. That sound is the exact moment the metal gives up. In a fraction of a second, the pressure inside finds its way out. And once it does, it cannot be stopped. The crack spreads instantly. The metal doesn't bend, it tears. What was once a machine becomes something far more dangerous. Steam escapes with violent force, faster than a human can react, faster than anyone can run. It blasts outward at extreme speed, turning the entire boiler into a weapon. And it doesn't stop at one point. The pressure shifts across the structure, forcing other weak spots to fail. One break leads to another, and within a split second, the entire boiler begins to tear itself apart. Heavy iron plates rip free, ribs snap, metal fragments shoot through walls like they were made of paper. The room fills with steam so thick, it blinds everything instantly. People are thrown off their feet. The air itself becomes a weapon. Some never even realize what happened, because the entire event is already over, less than a second. But what comes next is just as dangerous, because inside that boiler was more than just steam. It was energy trapped under extreme pressure. The moment the pressure is released, superheated water flashes into steam instantly, expanding with explosive force. What people witnessed felt like fire erupting from water itself. The blast wave spread through the building, breaking wood, bending steel, collapsing walls. And when the noise finally fades, what's left behind is silence, smoke, debris, and a place that no longer looks like it did seconds before. Because once a boiler reaches its limit, there is no recovery, only destruction. When the explosion ends, it doesn't feel like relief. It feels like silence, the kind of silence that comes after something violent, heavy, unnatural, filled with dust and smoke. Just seconds ago, this place was alive. Machines were running, people were working, voices filled the air. Now everything is gone. Walls are torn apart, floors are broken, and the entire space feels unfamiliar, like it was never meant to exist this way. The force of the explosion doesn't just destroy the boiler. It reshapes the entire building. Heavy iron doesn't stay where it was. It gets thrown. Some boilers were found dozens of meters away from where they stood, ripped from their place like they weighed nothing. Walls collapse outward. Roofs lift and fall back down. Wood breaks. Brick cracks. Steel bends. It's not just damage. It's total structural failure. And inside the building, the danger isn't over. The blast throws everything into motion. Tools, machines, metal parts, all become projectiles. Heavy equipment breaks loose. Spinning mechanisms snap and whip through the air. Glass shatters instantly. People aren't just facing the explosion. They're surrounded by it, from every direction. In many cases, the explosion is only the beginning, because factories were filled with materials that could burn. Coal dust, wood shavings, oil. All it takes is one spark, and suddenly the entire building is on fire. Flames spread faster than anyone can stop them, and what survived the explosion is consumed by the fire. When investigators arrive later, they don't see a machine. They see fragments, pieces of metal twisted in ways that don't seem possible, parts of the boiler embedded into walls, relying far from where they started. Everything points to one thing. This wasn't a normal failure. This was force, released all at once. And for the people who saw it, or survived it, it was something they never forgot. Because once a boiler explodes, it doesn't just destroy a building. It leaves a mark on everyone who was there. The most dangerous part about boiler explosions is that they rarely came out of nowhere. In many cases, the warning signs were already there. Small, subtle, easy to ignore. The problem wasn't that the boiler stayed silent. The problem was, no one knew how to listen. In the 19th century, there were no sensors, no alarms, no automatic systems. Everything depended on human senses, and human senses were never designed to understand steam. One of the first signs was something most people would ignore: sound. A boiler under stress didn't always look different, but sometimes it sounded different. a faint ticking, a low rumble, a shallow vibration in the floor. To most workers, this was just background noise. Factories were loud places. Machines moved constantly. Metal always made sound. So when something unusual appeared, it blended in and disappeared into the noise. Another warning came from the water level. Inside every boiler, the balance between water and steam was critical. Too much water, and pressure behaved differently. Too little, and parts of the metal overheated. Workers used sight glasses to monitor this. Simple tubes showing the water level, but they weren't always reliable. Minerals built up. Glass became cloudy. Readings became unclear. Sometimes the water level would suddenly drop or jump, and most of the time, no one understood what that really meant. Even the safety systems gave warnings. Relief valves were designed to release pressure, and when they started to open, they made a sharp, unmistakable sound. A hiss, short, sudden, easy to notice. But over time, workers got used to it. What was meant to be a warning became normal. Some even tried to stop the sound, tightening the valve, forcing it to stay closed, without realizing they were removing the only thing that could save them. And then there was the fire itself. The flame inside the furnace told a story. Its color, its movement, its intensity. A fire burning too hot or too unstable meant something was wrong inside the system. But most workers were never trained to read it. To them, it was just fire, just another part of the job. And that was the real danger. The signs were always there, in the sound, the water, the pressure, the flame. But they spoke a language no one had been taught to understand. And by the time anyone realized the truth, the outcome was already decided.